emotional intelligence is about being in touch with your emotions in the context of a relationship, being in touch with your emotions, being in touch with your partner's emotions, and being able to relate with them well.
Right. Being in touch with your emotions.
Yes.
Being in touch with your partner's emotions.
And being able to relate with them well. Meaning you're able to speak about what you feel, you're able to recognize what your partner feels, and you're able to handle them with empathy. Yeah. Once you're emotionally intelligent, even the way you deal with other people changes.
Okay.
The way you connect with other people changes. The way you're able to handle the other person's flaws and weaknesses changes. Why? Because you understand that you yourself have taken a journey, and because of that you extend grace.
Okay. Well, why can't we just trust that Judy is different from Jennifer? Just because, you know, Jennifer did this and this, doesn't necessarily mean that Judy will. She might, but doesn't necessarily mean that she will.
I think a lot of it comes from we don't take time to heal. And by the time you find that you are attracting a certain kind of person, it really is time for you to introspect and ask yourself a few questions. Because usually you attract based on who you are. So if you find that maybe you have not healed, or you've come out of a breakup, let's say, it's important for you to ask yourself, what happened in that relationship? What did I experience? Why did I process it the way I processed it? Where did I come from? Because like he's saying, a lot of it didn't even start with this relationship. A lot of it started from the place of our childhood, from the place of our teenagehood. We are simply carrying all that baggage into one relationship, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. That's why it's important for us to stop and think, how emotionally intelligent am I? How healed am I to be able to connect with another person? That's the only way, Mbuvi, we can be able to move people towards having healthy and wholesome relationships.
Why do we have people with different emotional intelligences, let me call them those, or that?
Okay. What happens is, say, just picking up from where our friend Chris has left, whatever happens to you comes through your emotion. The emotion is actually the gate, and he's right in this when he says that the soul is made up of your intellect, your mind, your emotion, and your will. So whatever experience that you experience will affect your emotions. Whatever then happens in your emotions is then registered in your mind. Remember that all these are the components of the soul. So it is then registered in your mind. Your mind then begins to give it interpretation. Whatever happened to you, your mind then gives interpretation to whatever happened. Now, that is what informs whether do you believe in yourself or not? Do you think you're worthy or not? Now, that's what interferes when you're talking about the fluctuations in emotional intelligence. Is we can go through similar experiences, but my mind will interpret on the basis of what happened to me earlier. Did I heal? Did I not? If I did not heal, then you realize that I will interpret on the basis of what happened. If I have healed, then I am more objective in the way that I look at this thing. You understand? So that's why when you talk about emotional intelligence, we have to first and foremost address the root. How do you feel? What made you feel this way? Then now process it differently in the mind, so that by that reason then you go through healing, because you've changed your perspective. Healing, by the way, is change of perspective. It is not erasing what happened. So once your perspective then changes, what then happens? Your mind then becomes better, more equipped then to begin to process better. Now that's where now begin now what he was talking about, what comes into your mind. Now you consciously make sure, intentionally make sure that what goes into your mind is positive. Sometimes when you tell people read the word of God, we may seem like we are being religious. Far from it. All we are saying is put in the word of God. Why? Because you remember that he said your spirit. So because you are spirit, that means that the word of God that you're imputing combined now with the spiritual insights, and all of us, by the way, Mbuvi, God speaks to us. It's just that you're not able to understand. It comes as a thought, an idea, a hunch, a feeling, a dream. So whatever feeling that has come now is better processed if your emotions are at a good space and your mind is in a good space.
us having that word of God in our minds, in our hearts, in our souls is like having a SIM card in a phone. So you can receive the necessary network. If it's Safaricom, Airtel, Telcom, whatever. So if there are some people who don't receive these signals, does it mean that ile SIM card wako nao network yao ni weak? Ama what are we saying?
Actually unajua ni ukweli. Sababu hii kitu iko hivi. And I like the fact that he said all of us are spiritual.
Right.
But I'm a believer, born again. But the other challenge that we have, Pastor Chris, is that sometimes we have developed believers in the spirit and not developed their soul. So they are born again and going to heaven, but their earthly experience is a bit of a challenge. Why? Because they have not dealt with their emotions, they have not dealt with their minds, and they have not therefore dealt with their will. And that's why you find that now the challenge becomes that we are not able to operate in our fullness and walk in dominion as God desired when he created each and every one of us. And so I agree with him that yes, we need to go into the source. And that sometimes, have you ever realized, think about the people who are not religious at all and doing exploits. Now think about, true, isn't it? And then you think about the Mzungus. What they know how to tap into is the realm of meditation that we have not taught the believer that actually you have a spirit and you do have a soul and you have to maximize on how to bring this into alignment so that you're able to tap, because you have an advantage, which he said. But how well are you able to take advantage of that advantage that has been given to you by the reason of the relationship with God, therefore to begin to walk in dominion? So it is that, especially I think it's the African who has really been hindered in this way.
The African?
The African. Because we are not taught meditation movie.
Si tunajua tu uchawi.
Si tunajua, kitu ikienda wrong tunajua ni uchawi.
Si tunakimbilia kwa waganga watusaidie na nguvu za kiume. Bibi aliyepotea. Sijui bwana alishikwa na kichaa. Kazi.
Yes. And then now we went religious, we started speaking about favor, Pastor. So we're speaking about favor and not, yes, we are pouring oil on people to tell them about favor. But favor also comes because you're emotionally intelligent, therefore you can relate with people, therefore doors can open for you. You get? So that is the dynamic that we are either very intellectual or very spiritual. What we are talking about movie is coming into the place where there is a marriage between the spiritual and the intellectual, because that is how God has created us. Well, you're looking very perplexed.
Yeah, because
yes, because that is how God has created us. God has created us with a spirit, with a soul that constitutes the emotion, constitutes the mind, which means that if as a believer you are spiritually aligned, then secondly, your emotions are in place and your mindset is good. And therefore, because of that, your will, you have drive and your will is submitted to the will of God. There is no reason why you cannot be able to walk in dominion.
Well, let's take a break on that one.